them so they can get that? So I'm sharing it in room and one space. I'm sharing the agenda in the Zoom room. So, oh, when did that happen?
As soon as everybody takes a seat, we will start. All right, we're going to go ahead and start. I want to thank you and welcome you to our September meeting. But first, if you haven't gotten anything to eat, please feel free to come back here and get something. I'll give you introductions and thank you to the children for having us today. So I'm Tina Mitchell. Life system. So we're going to go around the room and do introductions first. And can we start up in the corner with Katrina?
Katrina Coriel, Executive Director at the Scott County Partnership.
Michelle Cordy Cradle. I'm Shannon Young. Bailey Jeffries, Kenneth Jones.
YMCA.
Kelly Hahn.
Thrive and Holy Spice Recovery Project.
Dylan Baker, Director, Community and Project Director, Scott County.
Lori Morris with Power. I'm Katie Zetterlo with Power. Melinda Lowry with the Tower and the Scott County Partnership.
Carissa Miller, I'm your CEAS coordinator and the Community Services Director at Stillwater Individual and Family Therapy Services.
Chris, I can't see everybody since you asked them to introduce themselves.
Yep.
Reading my house.
All right, Brandy, you wanna introduce yourself?
Sure. Brandy Blank with Covering Kids and Families with the Scott County Partnership.
Carol.
Yes, good afternoon. Carol Atchison, Operation Parent, Community Advocate.
Dalton Baker.
My name's Dalton Baker. I'm the Disaster Behavioral Health Regional Coordinator with the Indiana Division of Mental Health and Addiction.
Dawn.
Hi, I'm Dawn Sanders with the Scott County Partnership with Covering Kids and Families.
Lisa.
I'm Lisa Harold from Teens Linked to Care, coordinator here at Austin High School.
Marilyn.
Hi, Marilyn Sink, Southeast Outreach Manager for the Indiana Youth Institute.
And Olivia.
I'm Olivia Zarati with Department of Health and Office of Minority Health, Community Health Worker.
Did I miss anybody on one?
I don't think so. All right. Thank you all. We actually, if you look at the agenda, we have it outlined a little differently today. We're actually going to start with approving the minutes from last month. You all had access through your email for that. So we're going to approve that by consensus unless anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, or anything to add to those minutes. All right. If not, then we're going to go ahead and approve those. The treasury report is on your agenda. There was a beginning balance of $34,623. The you pay out our ending balance of $32,223.03. unless anybody has any comments, questions, or concerns, we're gonna go ahead and approve that by consensus as well. We're gonna go ahead and move to old business. So Chris, if you wanna talk to us about those items?
Yeah, so our poverty simulation kit finally came in. It took quite a while, but it's here. So that is in the capable hands of LifeSpring to work on scheduling and coordinating that piece. So we should have that poverty simulation. Do you have any idea when Dustin is looking at doing that, or is it Dustin, or is it the other one?
I have not got even one of those on board.
Okay,
So I didn't know if we wanted to try to make a committee,
Okay.
of members that might like to take part in organizing that with me.
okay,
But, I can see if they want to be a part of it.
okay,
Since it took so long, I'm not for sure that everybody's schedule.
okay.
I don't want to speak for somebody.
So does anyone have an interest in helping with the poverty simulation setup? So it actually comes with a whole kit. So it's not like you have to go through any training or anything. It's just being able to facilitate the day and coordinate time with it. So don't everybody jump in.
Okay. Liz offered to jump on that committee. If anybody decides that they do afterwards, please feel free to email me.
Sorry, just making a quick note. Back to school bash. So let me open up our TikTok here. That's last year. I may not have made a TikTok for this year's back to school bash, so, probably did, but we had about 220. So we had some wonderful YGC volunteers, and so our YGC volunteers were keeping count, and so I think some of the counts didn't necessarily match, but we had about 220 come here to get school supplies. We had like 93 physicals or 93 vaccines, 93 vaccines and 50 physicals. So it was a pretty successful event. We were actually able to take all the leftover supplies from that back to school bash event and deliver those to D1 superintendent's office for dissemination to the students. So they were very excited and gracious about all the supplies we were able to donate. I think we will start planning next year's back to school bash, probably January, Tina, early January.
January,
Or maybe even December. So we found that to get on some people's fiscal radars, we needed to reach out earlier. So I think we're gonna probably start that planning process in January. So for people that wanna be involved in the planning for next year, and again, we'll plan 2 events. One of the things we're looking at doing is co-hosting that within the registration days of the schools so that it's indoors, and if we have excessive heat again, we don't have to cancel the event. So, any questions about that? All right, so we get to move on to the fun part. So, one of the things that Tina's going around passing around, I don't know if you all saw these on the table, but everybody should have one. I've also got a rack of pens if you all want to grab one and take it. And I'm getting ready to share it for those of you that are virtual. Okay. So here's where I get to tell you, don't be like me. So you're gonna look at different columns and rows, right? So you're gonna go across the column. So from red to purple or I guess go across the row. So row 1, you're gonna mark a number 1 for the list of those attributes that is least like you. And then you're gonna put a 6 in those attributes that is most like you, and then you're gonna number them 1 through 6. Does that make sense? So the first time I did this, I messed up and I did it like all the way down, so don't be like me. So you do it across, and then you do that for each one of those rows. So while you're kind of looking at that, I'll give you the background. You all know that we've been doing this Love Notes curriculum, right? So Love Notes teaches healthy relationships. And so in lesson 2, we actually take this personality colors assessment. And part of that curriculum is telling us that, you know, it's really important to kind of know ourselves so that then we can make decisions based on ourselves. And so today, what we want to do is figure out the color of our coalition. So when we figure out the different colors that we have in the room, and we can look at what those colors might mean and how that contributes into the work of the coalition. So I'll give you all a few minutes. Does everybody have pens? The pens may not have made it around.
I do not. Does anybody need a pen? Everybody good? The special pen. Yeah, anybody want a colorful pen?
And then those of you that are virtual, can you see the entire thing?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, the piece that I'll say too is not who you want to be like, but who you really are like. I found some people answer in the way that they feel like they quote unquote should.
So do we just mark one, or is it just?
Mark all of them. So
Oh.
1 would be the one that is least like you in that row. And then 6 would be the one that is most like you. And
Okay.
then you're gonna mark it across.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
While you all are filling that out, I wanted to bring your attention to receiving a free sweatshirt with the Cease logo on it. There's a sign-up sheet up here. Put your name and your size. Dylan said that they are known to run a little bit small, so you might want to upsize. And those that are on Zoom, if you wanted to email Dylan your size to get a free Cease sweatshirt, please do. Is there a deadline, Dylan?
By the end of the, well, I forget what it is.
Monday of next week? Okay.
All right, so once you have your Likert scale in each of the rows, this is where if you're a social worker, I need you to pull out a calculator, right? So some of you others might be able to do mental math. But so you'll go down like the red column and calculate all of those numbers and get your total.
I should do it and see if I change anything. Who's got their numbers on calculator? Huh? I asked if anybody had the numbers on calculator. All right, so Megan, what's the column with the highest number?
For me, it is yellow.
You're in yellow.
I can see.
What about you, Angie?
Close second was purple though.
Yeah.
Mine was
Blue.
I could also see that.
I'm a green and then yellow.
Yeah. I'm a purple.
I'm tied purple and blue, but I read it and I don't see how it says degree tie.
You really don't. So, cause Heather put in the chat too, she's a blue-green split. So it makes sense. If you were like a red-yellow split, that would be a little bit questionable, but.
I'm a blue-green.
Yeah.
I told you where I was. You didn't think she was blue without doing it.
And Carol's the green blue also. What other colors? Do we have any oranges? There are no more. I can see that, yeah.
Finally, a long shot.
my lowest by a long shot.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just one of my lowest stars.
Maryland's a blue. Oh, Olivia's a yellow. Wow. So when we think about all these different personalities, right? And we think about coalition work, where may be the place for yellow? Yellows are very compassionate, very kind, like they're the people you want to go to when you need a hug. So where does that fall in line with our coalition? Do you think that being supportive and holding space for people, right, is part of our coalition work? And we need those people, right? Where do you think blue comes into play? Who is our treasurer? So blues really like that very clear, like, instruction, right? And so they're the ones that read the policies and procedures. They're the ones that read the meeting minutes, right? And so we need that aspect whenever we're thinking about planning and organizing and all of that, right? So what about orange? Where does orange fit in? Oranges are fun loving. They're like the entertainment, like of the party. So if we're planning an event, do you want the event planned by a blue Or do you want the event planned by?
Well, if you want to read that, you want
Well, yeah, we probably need both on those teams, right?
For like new ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
We need that blue to make sure we're not going against policy, right?
Yeah, yeah, the blue is the one that says, oh, hey, we need a permit for this thing, right? But the orange one is the one that makes it a lot more fun, right? And so. What about red? Did we have any? Sean, are you red? Oh, Tracy's red, okay. So why do you think being direct and kind of being like very goal driven would be important?
Get it done.
Yeah, you get it done, right? And are there times that we need that?
Absolutely.
So sometimes we need that take part, right? So who am I doing? So am I gonna go to Ariella for whenever I need somebody to take part in the decision? I was like, not usually. So am I gonna go? Probably not. So when we look at that coalition work, so like we each have our differences. And sometimes that causes us to let down, right? Like there's a handful of social workers, right? And so our brains than some of the law enforcement. And so we need those different perspectives in our different spheres, but we need those. So when we may approach, right, about, hey, we need somebody to, those are one of those things that we kind of keep in mind. So I would like, and right next to me, so when we think about, poverty simulation requires some compassion, right? Some yellow characteristics to be able to work. We also definitely but that can kind of help us when we're parents, different work that we do. But does anybody feel like they're colors? Like, so I know those of you on mine don't have but on this little color wheel, it tells you more about the colors. It also, I mean, if you really want some color, there's some pitfalls that may come in each of them. So I'm purple, right? I'm very like also means and so knowing those things about and knowing, right? Like, oh hey, anybody feel like yeah. Yeah, and I think that I don't know. So I think that's right. Like we all grow and that could be that right now it's not right. And sometimes too it's just that who I am. For me it is that actually.
Krista, we're having a little bit of trouble with our audio.
Was it better when I stopped screen sharing? Or how is that? Did that help at all? No.
All right, what if I have it on the microphone?
That's perfect. Yes.
Okay. You all won't be able to hear the other people in the room very well, but you'll be able to hear like me or Dylan's getting ready to come up and present and you'll be able to hear Dylan. So I'm not sure what's going on with the owl. It does owl things sometimes. All right. Oh. All right, Dylan, are you ready? Basically they can only hear on my computer audio because the owl audio wasn't working. So. Okay.
Make it work.
Yeah.
Is this sharing with them?
It is, it's
Okay.
sharing with them. I didn't hit the slideshow thing.
I'm probably not even gonna mess with it because
No.
I'm afraid it'll mess it up.
Yeah, you might just move their little picture.
Yeah, they can't look at me. That's all that, well, at least to me, they can't. Anyway, so I'm going to be pretty brief, just in the sake of time and all of that. But September 29th is the last date for the DSC grant. So we'll be wrapping up year 7. So I just want to discuss some some accomplishments from the past year, what we've been working on, and then introduce year 8. I want to keep it super macro level, kind of just introduce sort of the 3 main goals of our 12-month action plan. And then after the meeting, we'll send out the full PDF document and then post it on our CEAS website as well, just so you all and those of you who are online have access to it for the next 12 months, which is crazy to think. This is my 2nd time doing this, and I feel like I just did this like a month ago. Anyway, so everyone online, still good? Let me see. Good. Thumbs up. Love it. Okay. So some notable accomplishments that I want to just briefly go over, and just so we're clear how I delineated this. I did not necessarily include what CEAS did. It's more Empower DSC focused. So like us obtaining opioid settlement funds will not be on here, but that is of course something we did within the past 12 months. So overall, we have increased CEAS meeting and event participation. Empower Junior, thanks in large part to Melinda, sitting up here in the front, is now in all 4 Scott County School District 2 elementary schools. And whenever I started, we were in 1-ish, sometimes 2, depending on who was facilitating that at the school. And then with that, Melinda and I purchased and introduced To Good curriculum, which is evidence-based. We bought the 5th grade level kits, but that will accompany sort of our goals and objectives with those 4th and 5th graders. And Empower, thankfully, continues to grow. And I'll go into some of the ways that we changed what Empower participation and membership look like in the coming year 8. We had 2 DEA drug takebacks and collected more than 70 pounds of medication collectively through those efforts. And then earlier this month, well, I guess earlier in August, I don't even know where I am today, folks. It's wild. In August, we distributed 65 medication lock-in boxes. And then also in September last year, and then over the summer, we hosted 2 community town hall events with Leslie Johnson and Nathan Harmon. Nathan Harmon reached all SCSD 1 and D2 middle and high school students, and Leslie Johnson was more tailored towards student athletes at high school in Scottsburg. And as if that wasn't enough, there's another slide of things that we have done. So this year, 3 youth went to CACA along with Carissa and I, and that was an exciting trip. We plan to take 4 with us next year, which is coming up. We hosted a Meet the Candidates town hall. Empower hosted the Amazing Shake that had participation from both Scottsburg Middle School and Austin Middle School, which was an expansion of the program this year. As the first year that we did it, only SMS participated. Empower also hosted the Amazing Race again, and then a multitude of pro-social activities like our Oogie Boogie Bash, couple nights of sponsored movies at the Ross Theater, a couple game nights at Warriors Den, and of course, we participated in the Scott County Partnerships Trivia Pursuit, just to name a few of the things that the youth, as well as Melinda and I, have been working on. And then we also have our first ever billboard right above the bowling alley that we hope will help increase recruitment and help spread our social media and platform across the county. So that's what we've been doing. On top of all the other things, being at community events and all of that. But I just wanted to sort of give a brief highlight and big thanks to everyone who made it possible, especially Melinda and our Empower Youth. I know, I'll say your name a couple more times, it's fine. So looking ahead, I'm going to open the DFC Year 8 12-month action plan. And before I do that, 2 changes, and then they should be passing around to, I like a visual aid, so I brought those. Our Operation Parent books, Carol, who is online with us, represents them. We will start passing those out and distributing those first week or 2 of October, as soon as the new grant cycle starts, and then locking prescription bottles instead of boxes. And then also there's a note for sector representatives, and I'll circle back to that.
Where are your bottles?
Great question. Somewhere. Are they going around? Love it. Love it. Can people online still see the screen?
The cool thing about those bottles right there is that you can open up the big one and drop your mail order prescription bottle into it and lock it, so it does fit the mail order bottle.
Are we still good online? Can you see my screen still?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, love it. Thank you. All right, so as those go around, I'm just going to go over just our 3 main goals, couple objectives, and then I will stop talking. So our first goal is to increase community collaboration. So that basically translates to expanding and continuing to expand both CEAS and Empower. We reworded how membership is defined for Empower. So historically, it's been attending only Empower meetings, but now moving forward, it will be attending Empower meetings and or events that Empower hosts and plans. So that way it kind of expands access to those who can only make it a few times a year instead of 9 to 12 meetings a year plus community events. And then also under that umbrella to expanding Empower Junior, as we hope to make it into Scott County School District 1 at some point, if not in year 8, year 9, or last year, year 10. One thing to mention, and I probably have scrolled past it, oh, I zoomed in, LOL. is that we want to continue to expand CEAS. So last year, our goal was to increase representation from our business community. And to some extent, we've done that. We are, however, lacking in the religious and faith-based communities as well as media. So that is something that we definitely want to focus on in year 8, is expanding that. And then goal 2, I'll scroll down for our online friends, is to prevent and reduce prescription drug misuse by youth. And we just sent in our core measures, and overall for the 3 grades we report on, grades 8, 10, and 11, our baseline data and our most recent IMIS data, so from 2022, all show that we're moving in a positive direction, and past 30-day use amongst tobacco, marijuana, prescription drugs are all decreasing. So that's great. So it hopefully we'll work ourselves out of a job. Some of us anyway. Let me keep going. One of the ways we plan to provide information to the community and to meet this goal is with the Operation Parent books that are going around. So starting immediately in year 8, we will start distributing those. We have them in both English and Spanish, and they cover elementary, middle, and high school populations. So we have just over 300 of those for our initial launch, and then we'll see how that goes, and then plan from there after our initial sort of dissemination. Also, under that same breath, the locking prescription bottles, we're going to switch to those instead of medication locking boxes, just because they're significantly cheaper and easier to store, and we can pass them out all year instead of at 1 or 2 targeted events. So it sort of expands our impact within the community. And then our third goal, as I said, I would keep this brief, is to reduce, it's on my last page, decrease youth alcohol use. So we're going to continue recruiting to empower, hosting community town hall events, and hopefully we can bring back Leslie Johnson to our SDSD1 youth or athletes, as they did not participate earlier this year whenever she was here, and continue sort of planning activities and incentives for both Empower and the coalition as a whole to keep moving forward. So I know that was very quick, very macro level and brief. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, yes.
Where is the distribution for the operation?
Yeah, so primarily at community events. However, if you want a certain amount, just email me and I can get you whatever you need.
That can work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Anyone online? Okay. Oh, there's something in the chat, maybe. Not for me.
And I will add this to the meeting follow-up email, a link to this on our Google Drive so that you can go in and look at the 12-month action plan. I know historically that has been kind of difficult on, but you can compare it, like, so CEAS's comprehensive community plan, the DSD 12-month action plan, they're in alignment. We can also throw in, like, so Shannon's community catalyst grant has some similar components. So we're all working on the same thing. Just kind of our different branches. So that way you can use that whenever you're doing your own grant reporting, you're doing your own application, and really see how your organization plays.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all.
Do you want to talk about
Oh, ooh. So that's right. Thank you. So I did say I would circle back. Anyway, so sector representatives. So every year, per DSC grant requirements, we are to have 12 sector representatives that represent a variety of different sectors within our community. We have not updated those in quite some time. And upon meeting and discussing personnel change amongst different organizations, some people just not attending anymore, retirement, all the things that play into to overhaul and change. It is time that we update those. So we have compiled a list of people that we're going to reach out to. You'll receive an email from me at some point today or end of day tomorrow. And if you have the capacity to do that, that's totally cool. If not, that's okay too. There is no additional sort of work required to be a sector representative. Just by attending the meetings and being an active participant in the coalition, you're doing your job, whether you realize that or not. So it's definitely a formality, but definitely something we want to update to help reflect the current status of our coalition today.
Well, and the sector representatives would be the ones that I reach out to, like in addition to the executive committee, and say, hey, when we're looking at our comprehensive community plan for next year, like what is something that's missing from, you know, from this year, or what's a change that we've seen? Like, so that's how we can all collaborate on that community plan and how we all decide as a coalition how to spend our dollars when it comes to the grant process. So. Any questions?
All right, thanks, Joe. We're gonna go ahead and move to announcements. We have about 10 minutes or so, is there any announcements underneath the prevention I think we would like to make? We'll start in the room first. We have a grant there. So we are also and we have a website designer already coming. So we're looking for community partners. We're very talking to the partnership, Power, and Y. We're looking to put the logos of the main partners on that front page of the website. Those and right at the website. People are in there. That's one thing. Over. So let me read on to a small. And then we have 3 months of fees, or you can have October connection, and actually like the top one, we're building those connections in October to the website, and then November is gratitude, and December is general. So we're gonna have partners do something within the organization that is very well. So we got it up and running, and lots of things happening.
Hey, Shannon, will that report from the marketing person be available for the rest of us to use? Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Anything else in the room for prevention and education? Anyone online have anything to announce underneath prevention and education? All right, in the room, anyone have announcements underneath treatment, intervention, and recovery?
Is it a slow month?
I will go ahead and say that we did have our crisis stabilization unit. Where it was held last week, it was amazing. It is a 6-bed, 8.3 hours, 59 minutes. We do service all 11 of our counties, and we also can send, especially for our law enforcement or reach crisis stabilization in a hospital.
What's the best way to reach the mobile crisis unit?
Number 1.
Okay.
There's a flyer actually on Scott County Happening.
Okay.
It has nothing.
Okay. I can't tell you how often I get calls of, can you do something right away? And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm outpatient.
Well, Centerstone has one in Columbus, we have one in Shepherdson, so hopefully we start moving on, some closer.
Yeah.
Any announcements in justice? Oh, sorry, I didn't finish that. Treatment, intervention, recovery online. Anyone out in the world have any announcements in that area? Okay. How about justice and law enforcement? Nothing?
All right.
Kelly, did you have anything to report, right?
Yes, so I just wanna do a good story, with our IRAC team, kind of deal. We work with. We've been doing that for the last year, and we had somebody, and they had already been sentenced, they were sentenced to DOT time. We had been working with them, we didn't think that they were going to, go off the DOT. And 6 days before the person wants to get out, we already had them fed. We had them everywhere to go when they left, they got out, they went to, DOT. So we scrambled because we often move people coming back from DOT into town. And so we have a case manager that we work with there. We sent all the information and we called her and we worked with the treatment facility that we were sending to, so got the acceptance letter, and DOT transported this person the morning they got out of DOT, they transported for us. So it was amazing. That was the first time that partnership happened. So just a silver story. Yeah, that's all I have. And they're still there, doing really good, and they're getting ready to leave next week. And then going into transitional living afterwards, so.
That's awesome.
Melinda, anything for Empower?
Kennedy.
All right.
So I'm Kennedy Carroll, I'm from Florida. And progressive. So I'm really glad it's by the way. So now it is. No. So. So Empower Junior is fourth and fifth graders in all of our Scott County centers are in Scottsburg Elementary School, and basically they meet. Scottsburg Elementary School meets the first Wednesday of every month, and last year the Empower members got to go to some of them, and we them that just showcase mental health and not a thing helping mental health, while also balancing everything else that is possibly going on in their life. And yeah, we start that in October. So one thing that we're looking forward to in October, we will be attending the National Association of Social Workers out in Indiana conference, up in Indy. So we're gonna go and basically talk to them and people all over the state about what we do within Empower and how they can implement coalitions similar to ours in their own counties. And I think that was cool. I think it would be cool to get it out there. Another thing that we are also doing in October, October, so So we will be passing out the fun socks with little notes on them that will have mental health messages. And last meeting, we talked about making and giving out friendship bracelets that will also have mental health messages on them. So hopefully just kind of word out about all empower, but also like, mental health. We have a grant that's Shannon talked about that, we're excited to partner with them on that. And we could have talked about there if you want. And we want. So. Under discussion. They're partnering with Seattle. Barbie and training. So some of us as board members are going to be dressing up as Barbie. And I think you're getting some. Yeah, their pockets are really Barbie and training. So I'm very excited. And then finally, Dylan, with the YMCA. I don't know, but the YMCA is got a thing with us. For juniors and seniors, they're offering free membership to us. And we that they want. What's fun party with them, but. Oh, sorry. On October 28th, so the bowling lane here is like our a roller bowl where they basically do the Halloween party. So we're gonna dress up and everything's gonna be glow in the dark. We're gonna have the party.
Anything else, ladies? You're gonna be busy in October, it sounds like. Yeah. Anything to report for positive youth experiences?
I've got one here. So Cornucopia, so September 29th, the first 20 middle and high school youth who register. There's a link up here on the flyer, and I'll include this in our follow-up handout. They get to go to Cornucopia. So I'm not sure what they're doing at Cornucopia, if that's the pumpkin farm or the corn maze or what. And I do know Heather is still looking for volunteers. Heather and Melinda are the only ones that are running Scott County Night Live every Friday. So if every now and then you can jump in and help out and volunteer to help oversee the events of that evening, let Melinda or Heather know so that they can actually take breaks and stuff.
Any other announcements or positive youth experience in the room? Anything to announce online for positive youth experience?
That was Heather's.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else that didn't fit in there that you wanted to announce, we'll go ahead and end this meeting and get ready to have part of the next.
Yeah.
Again. Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
Okay, so and Megan could probably explain this better than I can, but TASK is very similar to what we did when we did ROSC back in 2016. So the Recovery Oriented Systems of Care. So it's mapping out what it would look like to be a person in Scott County with a substance use disorder. So it helps us identify gaps and address those gaps.
So you can stay, it would be wonderful. Yeah, or take a break, I need to.
Yeah, well, it's a tripping hazard, so don't.
Oh, not as bad as that one.
Thank you.
Do we?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're gonna take a very, very short, like, comfort break, for people to use the restroom and throw their garbage away, and then we'll kick that.
Would it be easier for me to just email you? I need a conversation to put up here or like that?
You could just have your computer up.
Okay. Okay, this is.
What are you getting? Huh?
Hungry.
Oh, I would. I don't know. You sent me a picture. He's like, I think this is on Saturday. Oh my God. I'm like.
You think I can unhook her? I think I can unhook. If I just unhook this, will it go up there? Like if I plug my computer into it? Okay. Okay. So now they're still on here. Which, this.
You travel a lot. I did. I only did yesterday and today. For work, tomorrow I get to do it over.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I unplugged it, but there's people still on there, so I, yeah, left them on there, but I plugged mine in. I don't know if that's, no, it'll be fine. It's like when you down. You down? That kind of everybody. Well, thank you guys for sticking around. This should take about an hour. It might take less. I don't know. We'll just kind of see what happens. So, just appreciate you guys staying here to talk about this. I know you guys, if you guys have been on the coalition long, you've probably done some of this work. About how long ago?
2016.
2016. Okay. So TASK is taking action to address substance use disorder in communities. So this is a training that Purdue Extension, along with Extension professionals, so it's Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio that came together to put together this TASK program. And then in May, we were offered this training. And so myself and then Angie Washburn, she's sitting back there in the corner. She's a health equity analyst for Purdue, which are new positions. And most of them were at this training too. So she covers this area. And so she's going to be helping as well. She was at that training. And so I might look to her for answers and for whatever as well. So also want to thank Kurtz and Cease for letting us do this here. We're hoping we're going to do another one in October. We'll talk about that. And then going forward, so this is kind of like a year-long process. Meeting usually about monthly. So after the October Cease meeting, we're going to look at when we want to continue holding these meetings. So we want to kind of expand the coalition. We're going to talk about like who's kind of missing from the table, and then maximizing the impact that we can have by going through this process here. Okay, so the commitment for TASK is about 1 hour for the meetings each month. So we'll meet monthly from here on out, and then possibly about an hour of work in between. If everybody kind of takes their part, it's less work for maybe like 1 or 2 individuals. So it's just kind of depending on, in some months there may be more work than others, and we'll kind of talk about that too. So I do have an attendance sheet I would like to send around. I know we filled it out for the meeting, but if you guys would just fill out that attendance sheet as I'm talking, and then that's all for now, I think. Okay. Okay, so just before we get started, we will be talking about like some sensitive topics. So we have some group agreements here. These are just kind of some guidelines. I also wrote them on here. I'll hang them up at the wall. So the first one, I'll just say this one. Using I statements, listening to understand. So everybody might have something to say. We want to listen to understand. I talk about the I statements. We all have different experiences and beliefs, so we don't want to generalize. So explaining how something makes you feel. Listening to understand. Use people first language. So saying someone with a substance use disorder instead of saying something like an addict or a junkie. Calling in, not out. So with that in mind, someone says something that sounds offensive. Share that language hurts rather than calling them out. Working to problem solve, not to blame. We want to make positive change here and trying on new ideas. So just keeping an open mind with what everyone has to say. So our agenda for today, we're gonna do introduction, and then talking about, like she said, Ross. So this task is, it focuses on the recovery-oriented system of care. So we're gonna talk about what that is exactly. Talk about the history of this group, and then our structure for the meetings. And then we're gonna talk about recovery capitals. So what are recovery capitals, and then what recovery capitals are in this room. And then talk about who's here and who's missing. So who could we, and then we'll talk about like who can we invite to come to the next meeting? Like who do we think needs to come to the next meeting? So let's start with, I know I guess everybody was here for this meeting. Do we want to do introductions again? We probably don't need to.
Probably not. I think, we did have Jane jump in,
Okay.
unfortunately. But I think, oh,
Can you guys still hear you guys are still hearing? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So, Jane Noble's the only one that didn't introduce herself before, but I think we all know Jane, right?
I'm the counselor at Scottsburg Middle School. I missed the first half of the meeting because I was leading our Students Against Destructive Decisions Club today.
Good. So, all right. So we'll kind of skip the introduction part since we already did that, but we will talk a little bit. We'll do some kind of more little introduction things later, a little more detail. But first, we're going to talk about recovery-oriented system of care. So that's what ROC stands for. This is what this program is based from. So according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, or SAMHSA, they are the federal agency that oversees funding and provides guidelines for substance use and mental health treatment. So according to SAMHSA, a recovery-oriented system of care is a coordinated network of community-based services and supports that is person-centered and build on the strengths and resiliences of individuals, families, and communities to achieve abstinence and improved health, wellness, and quality of life for those with or at risk of alcohol and drug problems. So we use SAMHSA's definition of recovery-oriented system of care. This was published back in 2010, so it's been around for a while. It's not a new idea, and it was used prior to 2010, but that's kind of when that definition was kind of put together. So often our care systems are set up by healthcare organizations, but not always. A ROS can also be used to describe the whole community. Okay. So that's just kind of a little bit of a background on ROS. So types of ROS models. Okay, so there are several models used to describe ROS. I don't know, you guys probably can't read that. I can barely read it here. But first, on the left here is the hub and spoke model. So that includes a central point, okay, a central or controlling entity, which is usually a healthcare organization, okay, and then that is the hub or the center of the hub and spoke model. And then in that model, individuals have to be run through the center to one of the outward spokes. Okay, so I don't know, on this one, like in the middle it says treatment hub, and then the outside spokes are harm reduction, law enforcement, PCP, social services, justice system, yes. Okay, and they have to be run through the treatment hub to access these new services that are the spokes. Okay, so usually the spokes in this case aren't connected. They're all just connected to that central unit, and we'll talk about some flaws of that here in just a little bit. The complex adaptive system, which is the one on the right, it looks complicated, but just to kind of walk through it here, it starts with the community member, so that in the upper left corner, that blue circle is the person. Okay, so we're talking about a person here, and then you follow that person through this system. Okay, so we start with the person, they go to the yellow circle, which is exposure. That's what it is. So it's exposure to a substance. Okay, from there, they can go. So let me explain the lines. So the black solid lines are this is just an example one, but these are like, paths that are there, present. So that person could just stop, they could be exposed to this substance and then they could just quit and that's it, that's the end of the story, okay? Or they could go to this black circle, which is the substance use disorder, okay? And so from there, there's different options, right? So there's a black line to harm reduction, or the justice system, excuse me, CPS, and then overdose or ER. So those are all solid lines. Now our dotted lines. Let's wait. I got another one where there's one later on where it's a little bigger. We'll walk through it there. But this is the path, and I'll go through more details here in just a minute. That way, maybe you guys can see it a little bit bigger. It's a little bit easier to read. But first, let's compare them all. Okay. So in the hub and spoke, there's some key differences, and I've kind of talked a little bit about them. But the hub and spoke, there's the central controlling agent. It focuses on organizations, and like I said, those spoke organizations, there's not a lot of communication that goes between those organizations. It's just between that hub and the spokes, right? And it relies on that central organization. Okay, so then if something were to happen to that hub organization, the whole system could fall apart. Okay, because there's a lot of reliance on that hub. Okay, then we have the complex adaptive system, which is no centralized control. The focus is on the community members. So there's a bunch of different pathways that those community members can take, and that's what the focus is on the person. All organizations can be connected. They're not usually when we first do this map, and that's where this whole program comes into play, is figuring out where there should be connections and where there's not, and then how we can fix that. The processes are driven by partnering organizations, and it adapts to change. So when you have all those organizations and they're connected, if one of them drops out or one adds in or whatever, it's more easily adapted to change. Okay, so now let's go through this. Maybe you can see this is a little bit better. Can you read it? Okay, good. Okay, so if we're going into the solid lines are pathways that exist. The red lines are pathways that don't exist, but should. And then the dotted lines are pathways that do exist, but they're difficult, don't happen very often, or there's barriers, okay? So we start with the person, there's exposure, they can stop, or they go to they have substance use disorder is the black circle there. So that can go to harm reduction, which then can lead to treatment, or can go back up to substance use disorder. And then we have going to overdose or overdosing and going to the ER, which in this community, this is an example community, there's no pathway from overdosing and going to the ER to treatment. Okay, so that either that leads to death, or I guess it would just go back up to substance use disorder. CPS does lead to treatment in this case, or can, that is one of the pathways. And then we also have from substance use disorder going into the justice system, so getting arrested or something like that, right? Which then can lead back to substance use disorder. And in this case, there's no pathway to treatment from the justice system either. Okay, you might notice the dotted line from substance use disorder over to treatment, which would be a person with substance use disorder just reaching out for treatment. Obviously, that's a possibility. It's just not one that's an easy one, so that's why it's a dotted line. Okay, and then so from treatment going into early recovery, and then long-term recovery, which are red lines. And then we have the recovery capital down there. We'll talk about recovery capital. So does that kind of make sense to you guys? This is a really simplified one. When we went through the training, we kind of made these for the community. This is something that we'll work on for here in Scott County, is making a map like this and getting the lines drawn and doing all that. So this is kind of a really simplified version of this map. So does that kind of make sense? Does anybody have any questions that I may or may not be able to answer? Okay, so we'll keep moving. Okay, so most communities already have the foundation for a ROS. Okay, using a map allows us to see the coalition through a systems lens. Okay, and it doesn't require making any changes to the coalition. So we can, once we use that map, because of the arrows and it's easy to see where we have those gaps and those barriers, okay? So over several meetings in the coming months, we're gonna create a system map here for Scott County, and it's gonna provide a visual representation of our community and highlight areas where work can be done to improve the system. Okay, and then we are kind of the overarching goal of this is once we get this map laid out, which it's gonna take a few months to get this map done for Scott County, the goal is to look at it, find those gaps, find those barriers for Scott County for someone with substance use disorder, and then plan projects that are going to fill in those gaps or knock down the barriers. And that's kind of the goal over the next year, I would say. So we, our goal would be to kind of make this map, figure out those projects, and then we maybe get some small committees going that are going to work on these projects. Maybe do a couple up front that are gonna kind of be quick turnaround ones that we can get going quickly, and then we might have like maybe one big project that we can kind of work on as a whole group to do that. Okay. So any questions about that or the overarching goal for this group? Okay. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more now about this coalition, and then kind of the history of this group, and then kind of talk about kind of our goals for moving forward. Okay, so I have a handout. I just want to take one of these. If you want to pass it over, take one, pass it down, whatever. The top half is the introductions. We're going to skip over that part because we kind of already did that. So we're going to just look at questions for the group or coalition as a whole. Okay. And this will kind of help us to plan for the group. And I'm going to take some notes as we're going here. Okay, so I don't know if I don't know who I'm going to start here. There might be a couple people in this room that would have the answers to these, but let's just start. If you guys want to take notes, you can. I'm going to take notes for myself. But what is the origin of this group, and how and when did these begin meeting? Does anybody? Okay.
I was thinking 89. Yeah, 89. In
Okay.
1989, state statute created local coordinating.
Okay.
And see before that.
Okay.
Back then we were sitting. Yeah.
Okay. So that's when this group began meeting, was in 1989. Okay. And did it kind of look the same then? Like it was monthly? Has it always
I
been?
didn't come in until 99.
Okay.
So, as of, yes.
Since 1999, it's been
Yeah.
like that? Okay.
I'm assuming it was very similar prior to that as well. Meeting monthly. The biggest difference since I've been in it is we stopped having lunch. We used to have lunch every month.
Hey, we got lunch this month and next month. I'm bringing lunch next month too. So hey, there we go.
I like lunch.
Well, it's at noon. It only makes sense, right? Okay. So what would you like to see this group accomplish? And anybody can talk about this. And what are the goals? I guess we're talking about CEAS and with TAPS. Does anybody have any, like, what would you like to see the group accomplish? Do you have any coming in, like, what do you think should be the goals?
I think from 2016 to now, our recovery system of care looks very different.
Okay.
And so I think one of the things we've talked about doing is like having our map, right, and what that looks like now, but also including in the map, like, I guess kind of funding streams, like what's a CEAS program, what's a LifeSpring program, what's a Centershot program, what's DFC funded, what's a partnership program. And I think showing that community collaboration, like, and what that looks like is one of the things in my head.
So did you guys make that map before? And then how far did it go? Like, did you get into the, like, did you do projects or is it just kind of like getting the map?
Well, that's how Thrive was born.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Thrive was born out of that.
I want to see the collaboration, which we do really well in Scott County, but I think there's areas where we're missing to collaborate. And I think what you were saying is we need to do a lot more education in the community, like especially to our politicians, or one of you politicians, or whatever you want to call them, about what already exists. Because I think that the general public thinks that there aren't, especially those in decision-making positions. I think they don't have a good grasp.
Oh, no, and they don't realize how many services.
They don't understand the importance of the services.
You're right.
You know, we're just actually talking about that people don't get harm reduction, they don't understand it because they don't want to, or is it just because they don't understand the concept? But then how do we get them here? That's always been our problem. How do we get them?
And that's what we're gonna talk about that a little bit. And just a little bit is like who's missing, because I know I have like a few in my head and you just elected officials is like that's somebody that can be a part of this. Law enforcement, I know like the hospital is one that I know here, I think is gonna struggle to come here, but it's not just here. I think other areas too, health department. I think those are all that, you know,
I think we
should be a
even
part of the
think
conversation.
outside. I know at one point in CC's history, we were also having like a nightly meeting, even if we did it like quarterly, because, you know, some of our elected officials, for instance, can't leave their day job and come into a new meeting. I just don't feel like I think we've got to think outside of the blocks, like how else we can reach people.
People have to be one. They want to. Can't just go out and expect to do it. So that's what we want. Because we could have been there for a while. There are a lot of services. I'll be the first to admit that because I'm due to this position. And I told David that I was like, I cannot believe how really wrong with that. Okay, so how do you get the people who don't need them to understand the services that you have to offer?
To tell people who do need them.
Correct.
That they can be your advocates, they can be the people who are going to community events saying, you know, this is offered here, do you need help with that? Would you like these services in place? And I think sometimes, you know, a goal for this group would be to get maybe more involved, like to have a coalition within the elementary school to say, you know, I know that at Austin that I know of, they don't have a program. We used to have Say No to Drugs in Austin. We don't, as far as I know, there's just not a place there. And I think that would be a great goal to have, is that we get to the youth and we can get to the adults as well.
My grandmother always said it best, you know, we have repeated the cycle of what Scott County does. We repeat. And my grandma lived in the same house for 74 years. She knew that there was a lady walking, a young girl walking down the street, and she said, know that girl is, so yeah, I'm in school. Our mom's right there behind her, she's prostitute, she's prostitute, she's prostitute. 3 generations of the previous cycle, right? So what can we do to stop this? Yeah. But we also have had people that might have. I don't know that it's true.
I mean, and after this is all completed, how is this information shared into the community? I mean, is that a way that we can, address some people that need to be at the table to be a part of this? That it will be shared out,
I
so they
think
would
it-
want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think it can. Do you remember, I feel like we had conversations like this. Okay.
Clark County was pilot recently, and they had it put on a good banner to share out not only the first, and it does spark a conversation, and not for them to say, hey, wait, no, this isn't a thing, or, so yes, they.
I was just thinking of, a way that we can get that elected official, because they're not going to want something this big happening and then not be able to say that they want to. So.
Yeah, so how far do we, and we'll talk about that, inviting people. So I think sometimes, we talked about, for those that were at the parent meeting, I brought it up, inviting people. So maybe it is, and we're gonna talk about that today. I want everybody that's here to, I'm gonna ask everybody that's here to personally invite somebody to the next one, so that we can kind of grow and yeah, so I think it would be great to have these elected officials here from the start, right? Like not, like, yeah, it's good for them all to see, like, once we get that map done, we can get it printed on something and somehow get the word out there, something that we can figure out. But I think they should also be a part of it before that too. So yeah, that's definitely something we can look into. Okay, so the next question, how much time do you have to give to these efforts per week or per month? Like, is everyone here kind of willing to give like the monthly commitment of like these once a month meetings? And right now, like this one's after, these, so you were already here, and then I think next month we're gonna do the same thing, but then after that, it's probably gonna be a separate, or maybe not, I don't know. We'll figure that out. We can, yeah. Yeah, there's a few on there now, yeah.
Can we turn it or something? I feel like they're over there by themselves.
They're not looking, they're looking at you, they can see you.
It's the yellow in me. I really have a hard time when people are
Yeah.
hard to agree.
So like I said, overall, it's, we'll do these hourly meetings, and then kind of in the beginning, kind of how the process works is going forward, we're gonna be interviewing some community members. So these interviews can be like elected officials, people in recovery, families of people with substance use disorder. I don't know who did, I don't remember more examples, but like we picked people who we're gonna interview, and then us as members of this group can kind of take on those interviews doing. So that might be a time when it's a little bit more time intensive, but if we all maybe do a couple, the interviews are like, what, 2 or 3 questions? But it just depends on how long the person wants the topic. They say some of them can take, you've done some, for Clark County, you did some, right? Yeah.
So, yeah, they can be 20 minutes or 3 hours.
Yeah.
But 3 hours is on the high.
Yeah, because they're kind of open-ended questions. So depending on who you're talking to and how much they want to talk, but that's what kind of helps us to make that match, is these interviews with the community members. So. Okay, so past projects or activities that have been done that were successful. So you said Thrive came from the last one. Okay. Have there been other like projects or activities that have kind of come from that, or?
I co-created overdose fatality with people this last year.
Okay.
Our harm reduction effort.
Came out of that.
Our festival.
A lot of our initial knowledge on how to handle the epidemic came out of we were really thrown together into this. But like we hung on to each other. It came out of that need.
And our recovery community was one. Know that nobody really here talked about being in recovery, or if they were in recovery, they were very quiet about it, like it wasn't talked about, and,
Now you're living out loud.
yes.
Very much.
The recovery community and our harm reduction, like we were all born at the same time. I mean, a lot of, as bad as 2015 was, like a lot of good things came out of it, and a lot of different, organizations, like the collaboration, like everybody learned to collaborate through that.
We were motivated.
Right.
We were really, really motivated.
And I think everybody feeling together.
I'm hard to see the blind of the room though.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, we're all hurting the last 3 years, but we're not getting together. So.
I think we're suddenly pretending everything's okay. Oh, normal.
Yep, we're good now.
Ostriches. Mm-hmm. The ostrich, we're back in an ostrich. If we don't talk about it, it's not gonna happen. That's exactly how 2015 happened to us, but I think that's what we reverted back to.
So is that what the rock, I guess I wasn't even thinking of this here. Is that where that came from 2015? You did the rocks in 2015. Okay.
We had the best Ross advisor, who we still greatly miss. He died along the way. He was one of those people that, because we had this influx of state and federal, and they all in the beginning treated us like we were idiots. Like, you don't know what you're doing. You've got to form a coalition. Wait a minute, we have a coalition. You don't know how many different trainings we sat through. And you've got to form this new coalition. We're like, wait a minute, we have help us. They didn't want to listen to us. And this guy just sat in the room for the longest time. He'd just say, I'm just here. Until finally it was like, okay, we're ready for.
You wanna know how this has been full circle? I go up next, Friday, to do that committee, in Monroe County to help them build an ICU. Where do you came from?
That's so cool.
All right, so any current projects underway?
A lot of them.
With everything that,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of projects. Wait, I think which.
Okay. And then that next one kind of, I don't know how the meetings are structured. Anything that we haven't discussed that we think is important to discuss at this point? Okay, I'm gonna leave that, and we'll keep going here. We want to talk about recovery capitals. Okay, so you guys heard of that term before, recovery capitals? Does everybody kind of know? Okay, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to you if I say the word recovery capital? Anybody have a
factors in your life that I mean help you recover?
Okay. Good. All right, so the recovery capitals are the resources and assets that support an individual going into and maintaining recovery. So the more recovery capitals a person has, the better. All right, the recovery capitals are not always treatment providers or clinics. They could be organizations that host clean and sober activities, churches, positive social influences, family members, friends, a steady job, etc. Like, it's not just the basic ones that you think of. There's 4 major types of capitals: personal, community, family and social, and then cultural capitals. Okay. Obviously, some organizations might overlap more than one capital as well. So going into these different types of capitals, personal capitals are assets that are particular to a person. These are divided into physical capital and human capital. So physical, capital are assets that address basic needs like housing, transportation, that kind of thing. Human capital includes the personal attributes of a person, such as like having a sense of purpose or strong problem-solving skills. And we move to family and social capital. These are the people that are in the individual social circle that contribute to recovery. These can be relationships with family and friends, cultural groups, faith communities, a 12-step sponsor, athletic teams, those kinds of things. Community capital, these are community-wide assets that even if you're not in direct contact with them, they can still affect you, okay? So for example, green spaces are an asset that allow people outdoor spaces and physical activities. It could also include institutions such as law enforcement, government, and treatment programs. And then finally, cultural capital. Those are assets that are culturally sensitive and integrate traditions and values of a particular culture into recovery. Okay, so like programs for Native community that integrate substance use disorder treatment with traditional healing ceremonies. So that's what each one of those are. Okay, so talking about personal capital to start. These are personal capitals or personal assets that someone may have. So we talked about physical capital, which is like housing, food, clothing, transportation. And then the other one is human capital, person's skills, attitudes, or beliefs. Okay, so at the top of each section are the types of organizations that people that can help someone build these personal capitals. And then they're listed under each of the organizations. This is an exhaustive list, but some personal capitals like housing, food, transportation, going to social services, and then employment and finances. And we have like hope, purpose, meaning, those kinds of things. These are all, this isn't an exhaustive list of personal capital, but these are just some examples. Community capital, they can affect everyone. For example, even if someone is not directly involved with law enforcement, they are affected by the public safety that law enforcement helps create. Okay, so some of these are institutions that offer services, others might provide spaces, financial resource, or influence public attitudes. Okay. So educators, some of them are overlapped. Sometimes we see some overlap between the capitals. Like this one's like elected officials, law enforcement, and justice. Like everyone's affected by policy, everyone's affected by the community's attitude towards recovery, in those kind of community spaces. And then the last two, we have cultural capitals and then family and social capital. So cultural capital is treatment or recovery programs that are culturally responsive. And then family and social capital includes community leaders, family relationships, friendships, faith-based leaders, social networks, and those kinds of things. Okay, so now we're going to talk about growing the coalition or growing this group of people that's going to work on this, because I think the more people we have here at this table, the more we're going to get from it, right? The more that's going to come out of it to help this community. So that's really small. You probably can't see it, but this is what we're going to do. Okay, so I wrote them on here, and I wasn't sure how we were going to do it. I guess let's just do it real quick. I'm just going to sit down since there's not too many of us here. This is basically listing out all of these capitals. I don't know what that is. I think we should do it this way since there's not very many. And this is the people that are in this room. So if you think about like what recovery capital you bring to the table, basically, as yourself, who you and the organization that you represent, what recovery capital you bring. Because then from there, we're kind of looking at what are we missing? Who's missing? Like what recovery capitals are we missing, and who can represent those recovery capitals that need to be here at the table? Does that make sense? Okay. So, does anybody know like what Recovery Capital you personally or professionally represent?
I mean, I would probably represent personal capital of at mental health services, so.
Of what?
Mental health services.
Okay. So,
So when I go under healthcare, since it's mental, physical treatment. And you would know that all of that.
okay. So you would you be like social service or healthcare or both?
Well, I guess it's both,
Yeah, you want to leave a little bit better.
I would say honestly, like, I would probably fall more under healthcare than social.
Okay. So we have that's listed under there. There's personal, which the examples of healthcare, education, housing, food, money. So that would be like business leaders, healthcare providers, social service providers, and then educators. Okay, and then we have family and social, which is community members, and then faith-based institutions, which I know Dylan, you kind of touched on that in your report about the lack of faith-based institutions. And then we have community, which is law enforcement, justice system, people in recovery, substance use disorder treatment providers, elected officials, and the health department. And then the cultural would just be community leaders.
I would say that I would be the SUD provider, but also treatment. I don't know, I work very closely with the justice too, like with probation and community correction. So
Okay.
I would say that I would just put it under SUD providers because we do help with
Okay.
that.
Well, you can fall in multiple.
Oh, you can.
You can,
Okay,
yeah. So you think the justice system too?
I feel like I just fall under community.
The treatment providers?
Yeah.
So LifeSpring, I mean, we do not fit underneath religious, at all. We do work with law enforcement and justice. I'm not, you know, that underneath the religious. But all those others, I would say that we did.
So which one for you?
Religious, everything but religious or elected officials.
Everything but?
Yep.
Under
All of them.
under all of them.
I'm with her.
I mean, I fall under all of it. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I run a recovery community organization.
And what was your name?
Kelly Hans, HANS. I run a program inside the Scott County Jail, so I link people into treatment, like we provide services groups, we run in the jail.
So that you would represent like the justice system?
Yep.
So this isn't just to make this a little bit more clear, I guess, this isn't organizations that you work with, this is specifically like you or your organization is.
Provide the services.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then I also created it as a nonprofit as well, and I do harm reduction services, so I go on to the whole category. We provide social activities for people in recovery.
Not at all. I'm just in awe. Just in awe of this very girl. I've been girl over all of it. Just how much
I
we
think that
really
I-
do
I mean, I
have
think-
for such a small community. We really do.
Well, there is a lot of overlap with like organizations and people and I noticed that.
Well, and I mean, a lot of us are programs.
You know, but within rural, like we don't offer, like we don't have a treatment facility, we don't have transitional, but we are a resource broker, so we have all of those relationships. LifeSpring with Stillwater with, we have somebody that just came in, they need a house, or they need treatment, or they need this, and then we get them linked up with health insurance, and then we get an interview set up with them, and then we get them to where it is they need to go.
Yeah.
We just provide.
So. Yeah. like its own little category. Does anybody else have ones that they represent that you?
I feel like the partnership does a lot of personal.
Okay.
Couple things like social services and education. And. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we do. So like, I don't know if we could fit under like any of the like. Subcategories, but we do a lot of advocacy. And.
What if it's just under community members
Yeah.
sober activities?
Yeah, and like it's all. And like, I feel like also culturally, I don't know, I wouldn't say any of the community leaders, but under a different hat, we do a lot of like targeted, right, but.
I know, cultural competency
Yeah.
and community festivals, gathering, strategy.
Yeah.
And Michelle, did you?
Do we fit under social service? We fit under faith-based?
Okay. Talking about who you representing, Cradle?
Cradle.
Okay. I know you wear different hats, so, okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Okay, anyone else wanna share?
It's really fit under. Healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
education, we do house. We do food, we do money. And we put us as under money.
And are you talking about personal, is this healthcare, education, housing, food, money, transportation?
Mhm.
Yep.
That
We
was
do
under-
all of that.
Okay.
This is Carol Atchison with Operation Parent. Do you have prevention education out there? I couldn't see your screen.
Right. Yeah, education.
Yeah,
is-
so I'll
Yeah.
put it on here.
Yeah.
And I would even say religious also.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I can't see the screen and representing schools here, obviously education, but also the connections we give families to community resources. I'm not sure what you want to call that because I can't see the screen, but you know, a lot of times we are the porthole because if they have kids in school, then they might access other community resources that they learn about from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do, I mean, it's not uncommon for the school to have a child that's in need of housing or food or whatever else.
Yeah.
And they do offer, the school gives them food away as well.
So, looking at this and moving forward here, because I don't want to take too much more of you guys' time. Let's look at, so I know there's some that we do everything right, but I think specifically there are people that need to be here that aren't here. So like the health department isn't online. So how do we has the health department ever actively?
Yes, so
Okay.
they used to be very involved and then COVID happened.
Okay.
And
they kind of were
then,
sidetracked.
and.
Because
more
Michelle was on the
recently-
leadership.
Yeah, so more recently, Michelle just moved up to a state level or
Right.
regional position, and Brittany is working 3 jobs essentially, like within the health department. So I know they're hiring, so there will be somebody that will likely be attending, but I don't know.
So what I would like to do now is, based off of this, if everybody in here would just invite at least one person to come next time, we'll talk about what our next meeting is. So okay, so health department, that's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
Is there,
Tracy was gonna be here, but then she found out at 11 o'clock she had to leave.
and she is,
She's community director.
okay. Was she the one that was here? No, who was?
Yeah, she
Okay.
was sitting back over there.
Okay, so she might come to the next.
Yeah,
one.
so she
Okay.
will.
So-
October will be 1 to 2 after tea.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, I know. Are we doing it during?
Well,
We're doing it right after.
Okay.
But I did just get an email while we were sitting here from the hospital that I have to find another location. So, yeah. So I'm gonna have to find a location.
Okay.
We have facility money.
We can do it.
Can
So, but are we're having a regular cease business meeting. I know you had said there's a few of you that are gonna be.
Yeah,
Gone.
so, yeah, I will be out, I'll be joining first.
Okay.
Like, but I won't be joining this first.
Okay.
I'll be on vacation. So,
Is there stuff we have to do?
so Jane is gonna speak a little bit about the vaping issues in the schools and teen vaping. So as far as business goes. Yeah.
Did you say you were gonna be on vacation?
You're not welcome. You're not welcome.
We're not even gonna open it.
Yeah.
Go on. So October 5th, at the Y, we'll do the cease meeting from 12 to 1, and then this will be 1 to
Well, I'm
2.
thinking if we don't need a whole meeting, can we like,
And we probably won't, because I don't think there will be much in the way of seed business.
so if we give the cease business
30 minutes.
and Jane, that's what I was thinking, 30 minutes.
I can be brief.
Then can we extend the meeting 30 minutes? I think you're gonna get more people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
so it's
2-hour
only 30
commitment
minutes
is-
longer, yeah. And I'm gonna have food there too, and I thought maybe if we fed people, they would stay longer. So, you never know, it's worth a try.
What day did you say again? I'm sorry.
Thursday, October 5th.
Okay.
Okay, so is there someone that would be willing to contact, like Courtney, I guess, at the health department? Okay. So business leaders, I know some people said like, I do all these except this. Do we have really business?
Kelly Delaney attends, sometimes, but not super consistent. But Kelly's our chamber of commerce.
Okay. And what's
Delaney?
Delaney?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you,
I can reach out to her.
Okay.
I think if we let her know we really need her to be at that meeting.
That's what I think personal invitations, and that's kind of the point of this, is to reach out. So I think healthcare providers, like, it's not one we necessarily need to, social service providers, unless there's, for those of you, I guess, that kind of work in that, if there's someone in those areas that you think needs to be, then go ahead. I mean, you don't just have to invite the, the one person, whatever. If there's other people within your organization or other people that you work with in those areas, feel free to invite them as well. Educators, I feel like we.
Yeah, I'm like,
are
we
okay
have
on that one.
the schools represented. I think it's gonna be hard to get more,
Yeah.
like, school.
Right. Faith-based institutions is another one that, and that's something we can talk about for after October too. Faith-based institutions, I know you said you kind of represent that, but what if we're talking about, like, church, like, have they ever really been
They have,
involved much?
part of the issue is, so I know, Tim was very active in the coalition and he had some health issues or.
He's recovering his body.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I know he kind of fell away throughout COVID and, like Billy Snowden was also really active at H2O church, but Billy works for the school.
Lions Club's got one.
Yeah.
Is there somebody at the Lions Club that you could?
Yeah, usually Chris Raymond here,
With the corner?
with the corn.
Yeah, actually saw him at JC before.
And should have been like.
No.
I saw Alice here, but.
Oh.
Service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Al's the governor now, starting October the 1st, so,
I thought he was
I didn't know he was going for governor. I thought he was trying to step away from everything.
To become the governor.
It's good not to say it with a British.
And then I know, okay, so are there faith-based people that we need?
So I think that's gonna be hard scheduling wise.
Okay.
So I think Billy would be great, but scheduling wise, like they have something that really.
So what if we, what if we reach out to Lori Croswell again? She's ruling with her church, now with Elevation, she's retired.
Would you care to reach out to her? Okay.
We could also ask Carol,
We can, but I heard rumor that, her and her husband are looking for a place in Jeffersonville. Minnesota, I don't know if that happened. So I don't know if she's still
Who is it?
here or they.
Carol done with
Oh, they already moved.
Yeah, I was like, I think they're, but I think they're still gonna.
They'll be around, but they are.
Well, but on Thursdays or whenever we, just, you know what I'm saying, like if she's not living here in town anymore. Or whatever they need, or what about Jean Bridgewater, Jean Bruce?
Yeah,
They're
I had
all
actually
over the
mentioned this to Jeannie, and I could reach out to her again.
I can reach out to either one with you.
Okay.
What if, I don't know, what about Dave Bigelow at Memphis Christian Church? It was last year, maybe the year before last, they had a mental health conference there, and they ended up with over 200 families.
Yeah, he's Clark County.
Okay.
I can reach out to Don Watts with Fairview Christian Church. I'll reach out to him and see if he would be interested in it.
And then I have law enforcement, which I know.
Sean is so Sean is kind of then because.
Well, I think he got a phone call and then he left after that. So
Yeah.
I think something took him.
And usually Steve Harold is here, but again, it's one of those things where like Sean is actually fully staffed, but that there's department, so.
What about anybody from the sheriff's department ever did sheriff?
I'm getting ready to go up there at 3.
Hey, you should probably ask,
and we don't know, this is Thursday the 5th, but we don't know what day this is always gonna land on from here on out, but we're just asking them for 1 hour a month.
Yeah, and I think if we do Thursday and then let's say next month we have like a bigger crowd and we think that that will work for this group, like then we can keep it that way, right? An hour, like just do the hour after. But if we decide, no, we'll get more people if we do it in the evening, then we can schedule it for the next month in the evening. I think we just kind of see who comes next time and then, or if you guys invite these people and they're like, no, I can't make it, but if you do it in the evening, then bring that information too, because then we'll know by October, like, do we need to do this at a different time? And if so, then we can schedule another time. Because an hour in the evening would be okay too. It's just, we want the most people to come to the table.
well, and I'll reach out to Steve, cause they just had, so Scott Feller is retired, David Harden, chief. So David was doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Now Steven's doing all this stuff, but David's retiring in April, so I don't know what that.
So the other big one, would be elected officials. Getting like 1 or 2 of them to the table would be wonderful. I don't know if that's even possible. I don't know. Does anybody have an in with an elected official? Dylan, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think reach out to Joe.
Joe would be good.
Joe.
Joe's off in the city.
Okay.
You feel him.
That would be great, I know how to ask him to come to some things, I think he'd use.
Well, he works at the school, so he might, does IT at for Austin schools, so I don't know that he would be able to, like,
Yeah.
John Miller, our school council, we had a pretty big this year, so we can employees helping with the.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that, would you be willing to reach out?
John's on my board too, so, I mean, I've got elected officials, lawyers,
yeah.
Okay.
it's just getting, like I said, John is on the board, Trevor McIntosh, City Council. also.
Okay. And then another important group of people, obviously, is people in recovery. I know Kelly mentioned she's in long-term recovery. If there's anybody else that you guys work with, people that are in recovery, I think it's good to have them at the table as well. Also, those can be people that we interview too. I think we want to try to interview different people in recovery, also family members of people with substance use disorder, all people that we want. But I think that's a pretty good list. So if we want to, work on just personally inviting those people for the next meeting, which we said is October 5th. So we'll do C's. So is that official at the Y? Yeah. Okay. I'll bring lunch again. It'll be something different next time. And then so we'll meet for say about a half an hour with C's business. You're not gonna be there, so.
Yeah.
Okay. And then maybe it'll just be about a half an hour longer and we'll do the second portion of this. And then from there, we'll kind of just plan when we want to do the,
That's what we're not.
okay. So wonderful. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys sticking around, for this, and I look forward to working on this with you guys. And we will see you in October.
Great. Thank you.
You guys, thanks for yeah.
Do you know what time they're doing? I'm not gonna do it until 5:30. We have long. We're going to another meeting, but I was going to be at 5:30 set up.
I couldn't remember what time.
Please.